Doctor Adventures is possibly one of my favorite Doctor Who audio series going on right now that I can talk about without feeling like I'm treading on upcoming Doctor Who retrospective stories. David Bradley, I think, was a great choice for the first Doctor, an adventure of space and time, and he sold the idea even further in Twice Upon a Time, so it makes sense to have him reprise the role in the audios. Granted, he doesn't really sound like William Hartnell, but he does a great job of acting like the first Doctor, and the same could be said about Claudia Grant as Susan, Gemma Powell as Barbara Wright, and Jamie Glover as Ian. I really just wanted to listen to more First Doctor stories, and a problem with a lot of First to Third Doctor audios, for me at least, is that they have narrators, and that's mostly hit and miss for me because it feels like we're sort of taking me out of the story a bit. So, the first story in this box, or set, was The Destination Wars, written by Matt Fitton, who was one of my favorite writers on Big Finish. He's written some of my favorite stories. So in this story, the Doctor and Company try and fail once again to return Ian and Barbara home, which is pretty much what they're trying to do all the time. Like every story, for the most part, is like, well, how will Ian and Barbara get home now? How will the Doctor get them home? Because in reality, the Doctor kind of has little to no idea how the TARDIS works, and they end up in a place that they first think is Earth in the future, but instead turns out to be a place called Destination, and it's pretty much a utopia, thanks to the works of a mysterious messiah-like figure known as the Inventor. And that's where the story is, because it turns out the Inventor is the Master, and not any particular incarnation. This is a totally new incarnation, at least for us, the viewer. This might be the first proper incarnation of the Master. So take the boy from Sound of Drums and age him up, possibly. Ultimately, that's the real hook of the story, the first Doctor and Company meeting the Master for the first time. And it's interesting to see Susan react to him knowing that he's here, as well as Ian and Barbara encountering him for the first time. The Doctor acts like you think the first Doctor would, and he's rather close to the vest of this story as he examines Destination, and his dynamic with the Master is, I think, a bit too obvious in that they are clearly enemies. The reason I say this is because there's never really a moment when we think, when did the Doctor and the Master stop being friends? At least that I know of. When did the friendship become antagonists, or we're not so different, you and I? Sort of like, my great and worthy opponent, the best buddies end and the animosity begin. I don't think we've ever known. I don't think we need to know. But we could argue that it's happened in the first incarnation now. We know that. The Doctor refers to the Master himself as pioneers among their people, which felt a bit much, sort of overselling the importance of the Doctor. Like, he was like, we were the best people, like, which is sort of implied in other stories, like the Ronnie Elite. The Sixth Doctor refers to the group of friends, the Doctor, the Ronnie, the Master, the Monk, even future leader of the CIA, were in a group called the Decca. So, maybe sure, but the problem is, it highlights how the Doctor and the Master were viewed by the show itself in the classic era, which doesn't really work for me. And, like, the idea that the Doctor, and especially the Doctor, was like this super intelligent, super competent student, like the top of his class, which we know isn't true from just his fourth incarnation with the reveal from Romana, that he barely passed his exam at the Academy. And I like that bit. Overall, this was a fun story, but the real meat of this, and the real meat of every audio for the first Doctor Adventures, is The Great White Hurricane, which is a pure historical, which is one of my favorite things, especially for Doctor Who. So a pure historical is there's no alien, there's the only time travel is a time travel that brings us to this point, and it really is, let's meet the historical figure of the day, or let's experience this event in history. So the Doctor and Company end up in New York in the year 1888, hours before one of the greatest snowstorms in American history, literally up to 58 inches of snow. It's crazy. But this story is like a lot of great pure historicals, as the focus is less on the spectacle and more on the people involved. So the event is sort of just the backdrop. What matters here is the people, and they add the life to the story. The experiences that the companions of the Doctor share are where the story really gets its meat from. The Sixth Doctor audio, the Marian Conspiracy, the Seventh Doctor audio, The Settling, really helps sell this one. And hearing about how Patrick and Rosalita live in that time and what they go through is a good experience. It also does more for Susan as a character, who often gets pushed to the side and is sometimes regulated just being kidnapped. Granted, she gets pretty much kidnapped here, but it's a great moment for her to interact with the character and play off of someone. Susan's interesting because in a different series, I think she would be the main character, with the Doctor being the only person who knows exactly who she is, or even more, the Doctor would die to save Susan, or maybe, possibly just throwing it out there, Susan was some kind of being from another dimension that the Time Lords were holding, and the Doctor found her and fled Gallifrey with her, and it turns out Susan's like really important, like possibly the key to regeneration, something like that. But that'd be kind of stupid, wouldn't it? Yeah, kind of stupid. But anyway, really fun audio. If I had to describe what I felt about these first two audios, it's how it really sets the tone for what we can expect from the audios going forward. The first Doctor's era is, I want to say, grounded. I think that's the word I want to use. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't really try to reinvent the wheel with time travel. It's like, hey, we can just go to another planet and just have that be about something, And not saying there can't be some great mysteries, like, other dimensions and whatnot. But what didn't have to sort of like, what's the gimmick of the day? Like, no, we're traveling through time and space. We can go to the far future, the far past. We don't have to have all these really weird, overarching plots. And I think that's something Classic Who is good at. Sometimes a season can just be a season. There's no weird end goal or conspiracy. Like, the Master's just here. There's no, this is the beginning of my plan. This is a really fun audio. Personally, I like the Great White Hurricane more. Actually, I like the pure historicals more than the heavy science fiction stuff for the first Doctor's audio. Not to say that any of it's bad. As a matter of fact, we'll get to a really good one later on. But the pure historical is just so much fun. The next one's, it's so good. Oh god. Okay, anyway, so with that in mind, we're bringing this video to close here. If you're new to the Back to Think Tank, if you like, comment, share, subscribe. What did you guys think about this audio? Did you like it? Did you hate it? And leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'll catch you all later. This is the Back to Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom